Salem 5! Salem 5 Studios back here for Boston has entered the chat. Travis Thomas, the Kasey Hudson.
You never know what to expect, and
Never.
I love it. That is why you are whiskey.
Told you.
Those nights can go a few different avenues.
Usually goes left with me. All right, let's talk bees here, okay? So, obviously, whenever I have you here, I want to talk hockey. And it would be easy for me to sit here and say, tell me about Pasta. Tell me about Swayman.
Right.
Tell me about McAvoy.
Right.
No. I want some players we need to watch throughout this offseason as we get into all these camps and we get closer to the real thing. Give us some players we need to keep our eyes on that you're expecting big things from.
So you're saying, Kasey, don't be basic.
That's
here.
it.
That's it. Okay, yeah. Nice and simple. I'm going to start with where I was kind of talking about beforehand.
Okay.
It's the fact that in trending, we're talking about rookie camp starting, one of the names on the roster being Frasier, Mitten, and I'm like, I get it. I might be too high on the kid. I'm not. Part of me saying a player to watch here is because there was going to be a lot of competition when it comes to figuring out what the bottom six is going to look like for this team.
Yeah.
I know a lot of fans were kind of struggling with the fact of not picking up like reliable secondary scoring and just overly relying on this top line. But the way that things are kind of being perceived or projected when it comes to the third line is becoming interesting. Frasier Mitten at the moment is projected to be that third line center. And I like this for a number of reasons. You're talking about a Bruins team last season that kind of, sat at the top when it came to giveaways. Making sure that they kept possession of the puck was a bit of a struggle. And during his WHL career, him being Mitten, he was really good with loading up on takeaways. At one point, he was a top 5 player with takeaways. So talking about somebody who can kind of have finesse on the puck, make sure that any pucks that get loose, he can jump on it. And then he's really good when it comes to transitions, making sure that it stays on his stick. Outside of the takeaway opportunities, though, net front presence. We talked about it here in Boston has entered the chat. There was a number of games, especially when they started giving up leads in the third period last year, where you see this hard work created for this scoring chance and opportunity and no one there to polish it off net front. And he's got a big body at 6'2", almost 200 pounds, if not 200 by now, who has the capability to have a net front presence and polish off those opportunities. So I like that. And then something else that jumped out at me is that his scouting reports talk about him being so effective and efficient when there's space on the ice. He's also projected to potentially be playing inside of Tanner Jeannot, a guy who said it when he first got here in every interview possible. Something that he's really good at is creating space. So if he's playing alongside Frasier Mitten, and this is a guy who can capitalize on space, you're just kind of looking at something that can synergistically line up for the Bees.
A follow-up in terms of young players on this roster, because you've mentioned that a few times. I feel as though under Marco Sturm, these young guys will have an opportunity this year. To get some run and to contribute to this team, where sometimes a new coach comes in and they can shun young guys a lot of times in favoritism for the veterans, right?
Yep.
I feel like this Bruins team will lean on these young players. Is that fair for me to say and to assume? I
don't know if I'd say lean, but I'd say that the opportunities are definitely going to be there where you can find a better tandem between the vets and the younger players. Because when you look at some of the lines and how it's kind of going to blend together, you're going to have a pretty young guy in the mixture with a veteran, and they're going to have to be able to feed off one another, hence me taking it back to Tanner Jeannot and Frasier Mitten.
Who else you got for me?
Elias Lindholm.
Oh,
and I have this because I was such a fan of Elias Lindholm, and I remember even being in Tampa when I found out that this transaction happened. I was like, damn it, the Bees just got stronger, because that's what I thought of Elias Lindholm. There are growing pains when guys come into their first year in a new organization, and considering the fact that you came into an organization where there was a coaching changeover in November and still trying to figure out their identity, lost their identity along the way, lost players to injuries.
That team underachieved.
Yeah, you're talking about a former Selke player as well. So sometimes what happens when these offensive opportunities are just such a hot mess and then the reliability comes into isolated situations, you find two-way players kind of just becoming hyper-focused on playing defensively and not being able to present themselves in any offensive opportunities. So again, you're hoping that he can pull some pages out of that 2021-22 season where he just kind of went off the charts. Also, this is the first season, the season that he had with the Bruins, where he's played 82 games since his 2021-22 campaign.
Oh, wow.
So a healthy Elias Lindholm who can produce on the power play, as well as he's very deceptive when it comes to scoring. He's really good at finding the top shelf consistently. That can be a pest to play against. So if he can get to any sort of rare form to what we saw with the Calgary Flames, now being in the second year, now going through a new training camp, now having a guy like Marco Sturm who can kind of pull the best out of each individual player.
Sure.
I just want to keep a close eye on him taking the next step at being effective, because he typically should be sitting at the 20-plus goal range as well as helping out on special teams.
He feels like an X factor to me because, I mean, you look at the season Morgan Geekie had last season, right? Now, I'm not anticipating the exact same numbers. He had career highs across the board.
Right.
But I do think consistently he can be a guy that you can lean on, even though we may not see those same numbers. And this is a guy who secured the bag, too. 6 years, $33 million. I mean, those two together should work out on that top line with Pasta, right?
Yeah, and that chemistry is going to be the most important, because your top line centers, I mean, that's your arsenal. That's your most important weapon. Look at the top teams in the NHL and what their top line centers are producing. So kind of being able to open up Pasta a little bit more, finding some more of those assists. Like, again, the deception that he has the capability of having. When you go back and look at Lindholm's highlights with Calgary, I mean, some of the passes that he was able to produce, or the way that he was able to consistently kind of find openings and make teams pay for it. If he can bring any of that to the ice, you're opening up a Pasta that can continue to put up 40 plus, and then a guy like Geekie who can kind of copy and paste his best results from this previous year. Well,
we actually hear from Geekie right here on his goals this season. Take a listen.
The pressure, I feel like, always came from, you know, are you good enough to play in the NHL? And like all throughout your career to just like be fighting for like a job here and a job there. And you know, now that I'm, you know, here for 6 more years, whatever, I think now it's like you don't really have those external thoughts, and like the external pressures, they more come from within. And like for me, it's like not the hard part, but like the life part is over. So like now I can just go start playing hockey and just like not worry about anything else. And I think that's like a big thing for me, is just like you go into last year and I didn't start very well, and it's just like there's a lot of pressures externally. You know, you don't know if you're going to have a job next year, you don't know where you're going to be, and you know, it weighs on you, it weighs on your family and things like that. But to be able to have all those things, you know, pushed to the wayside and figured out early, and just to be able to come to the rink and enjoy every minute that I'm here with the guys, and you know, just play my game. And you know, I thought I finished the year strong personally, and just being able to build off that come October will be lots of fun. So it's like, this is all fun, like, to me, especially now that things are all sorted. So selfishly, it's like I'm in a really good place, and just want to build off that.
All right, I'm geeked up for Geekie. Who else should I be geeked for?
All right, Pete Blackburn mentioned this guy months ago, but it's going to be Blumel. And it comes back to that bottom 6 competition, and you're talking about a lot of conversation around Patra. Is he going to be able to produce at center? Is he going to get a chance at center, or is he going to be at right wing? But now the competition at right wing is heating up, with a guy like Blumel having a lot of expectation on him. And size kind of being a factor also. He's coming in at 6 foot, a little over 200 and some odd pounds, but he put up insane numbers in the AHL. And something that I love to point out, his first NHL goal came off of a feed from Tyler Seguin. And Tyler Seguin is one of those guys to where he's kind of like chaotic in a sense. He's making these rapid decisions. So be able to track him going into the offensive zone and capitalize off of an opportunity that he pulls out of thin air, I think speaks to really good reads and opportunities off of Blumel. But then you're also talking about a finite skill set that he has. He's got a lefty shot. He prefers to be at right wing, but can play at right or left. If he does play at right wing, that gives him a lot of really sharp angles to execute off of as well. And then typically it makes sure that you have a stronger backhand. And you saw a number of his goals in the AHL coming off of his backhand, and it can be a bit of a surprise how quickly he shifts to his backhand to take the shot, and also how quick he approaches these shots and opportunities. It's like you don't have a minute to react out there. So he does really good at keeping defenders and opponents on their toes, and I feel like he's going to heat up the competition in the bottom 6, more importantly over at that right wing. And I think that something else that's going to be really good, they noted on his scouting report, give and goes are like his thing. Somebody else's scouting report that said that was Frasier, Mitten, and the projected lineup of that third line right now by Daily Faceoff is Jeannot, Mitten, and Blumel.
Makes sense. Hey, listen, say what you want about the offseason. This team did get bigger, more physical, and just big physicality. You kind of get back to Bruins hockey in that sense in terms of the brand. Who else you got for us?
Really quickly, I got Mikey Eyssimont, new addition. Everyone knows I covered him in Tampa Bay. Just the things that we heard from the beginning understanding, but that I got to see with my own eyes in Tampa is the fact that he's really gritty. He's an insane forechecker. He's got speed. But I like the fact that he's the kind of guy where if loose change happens in terms of pucks getting out in the mix, he's the kind of guy to capitalize off of it or keep the play alive. And a number of times, if you have somebody who has a net front presence, Mikey Eyssimont going to find you and get the puck to you so you can somehow find the back of the net.
How about Nikita Zadorov? What can we expect to see from him this season? Because I'm looking for more of a leadership role out of him.
Oh, I've been screaming his name from the mountaintops.
I heard you.
Yeah. He played with one of my best friend's husbands, and what I've learned about him is that the leadership quality is there. He did talk about the amount of great NHL players that he's had an opportunity to learn from and play behind when he did his one-on-one with Sophia. But I think the biggest thing is you're talking about a really stout defenseman, clearly an intimidating guy.
Yeah.
I know fans were concerned about the amount of penalty minutes. If he can just be more disciplined within his physicality, you're talking about somebody that can be a huge factor for the Boston Bruins.
Do you see leadership out of him?
Absolutely.
Me too.
Absolutely. The players that we've had a chance to talk to so far throughout the offseason have just talked about how he has this approach and this demeanor to him when he talks about your game, when he helps you with corrections. Mason Lohrei even talked about learning a lot from Zadorov. So I think that he has such a leadership chip on his shoulder, and he gets to the point. He's very direct, he's very blunt, but he cares. So there's so many great things in terms of the different voices leadership-wise, especially going into a season without a captain. So discipline when it comes to hitting the penalty box, but outside of that, you want that intimidation factor to stay mean.
Every time I've been upset this offseason, you have made me feel better when you talk about the Bruins. So when we get to the season, if there's any point, which will happen for sure several times, where I feel like I need to smoke a pack of Newports, we can all lean on Kasey to bring us back down to earth.